want you to think back to the last time that your child had a bad game. Not a mediocre game, a generally bad one. The kind where you could see from the sideline that something was up, where the player you know your child is simply did not show up. Think about the drive home. Think about what the energy was like in the car. Think about what you said. And now I want to ask you something that most parents find generally uncomfortable. Can you remember exactly what you said? Not the general tone, not the approximate message, the exact words. Because here's what I have found after years of working with elite youth players and their parents. Most parents cannot remember the intention. They remember wanting to help. They remember trying to say the right thing or trying to stay quiet or trying to find the balance between honest and encouraging. But the exact words, the specific sentences that came out in those first 10 minutes after a hard game, most parents cannot recall them with any precision. Your child can, word for word, tone for tone, pause for pause. They have replayed that conversation more times than you have had. And it is living in their head right now. Not as a memory they occasionally visit, but as an active program that runs automatically every time they step on the field, where something similar might happen again. The same missed pass, the same missed shot. That conversation you cannot quite remember is one of the most powerful pieces of coaching your child has ever received. Most parents have no idea it happened. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Valentino Di Lorenzo and I run a DSM, Di Lorenzo Soccer Mindset. I work with elite youth soccer players on the mental performance side of the game. And one of the first things I do with every parent who comes in is something called the language audit. I ask them to tell me specifically as they can what they say to their child after a bad game. Not after a good game, after the hard ones, where the performance was clearly below ability. And the ones where the hesitation was visible and the frustration was real. The car ride home has a weight to it that everyone in the vehicle could feel. And what comes out of that conversation is almost always the same thing regardless of their parents' background, their coaching knowledge or their emotional intelligence or how much they love their child. Your child's brain to associate game with evaluation, not with having fun. Mistakes have consequences and performance match with love. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but consistently. And the consistency is what the brain needs to build a program. Let me tell you what most common post-game language patterns actually look like, what they're doing to your child's mental performance. The first pattern is the analytical debrief. So you get in the car, you give it maybe 5 minutes of silence, and then it starts. Your first touch was off today. You were not pressing. You were not going so hard. Why didn't you shoot? I do not understand why you kept going backwards when the space was clearly behind. You think this is coaching. You think this is helping your child learn and improve. And the intention behind, you have the right intention. I'm not saying this is malicious. You see things, you understand the game, and you want your child to get better. But here's actually what's happening. The brain after competition is not in a state where it can receive, process analytical feedback. The emotional centers are still activated. The nervous system is still coming down from the physiological stress of competing. The part of the brain responsible for learning and integrating new information is partially offline. So when you deliver analysis in this state, you're not coaching your child. You're teaching their nervous system that the period immediately after competition is a period of evaluation and criticism. And the brain, being the pattern recognition machine that it is, start to anticipate that evaluation before the game even finishes. In the second half of a tight game, when your child should be fully present and competing, they know they already messed up a goal. They already know they're not playing at their level and they continue playing at the lowest level. And that anticipation evaluation is stealing away the joy and the fun for the game. The comparative question. Did you see how the number 10 was playing today? This is the level you need to be at. Why can't you make decision quickly? He does not hesitate. She does take the risks. They're trying to show their child what is possible. They're trying to use an external reference point to inspire higher performance. Brain does not hear inspiration, they hear comparison. And comparison is not what your child needs. They need to compare themselves. And also all they hear is somebody else at your age is doing better than you. And that message does not create motivation, it creates anxiety. The third pattern is the one I think is the most underestimated of all. And it's not harsh, it's not analytical, it's not even particularly negative. It is the loaded question, how do you think you played today? This sounds like an invitation to reflect. It sounds like you're giving your child space to process their own performance in the context of a car ride home after a bad bad game, your child does not hear an open question. They hear a test. They hear an invitation to confess. They hear a setup for a conversation where the correct answer is already known, and anything they say that derivates from that correct answer is going to lead somewhere uncomfortable. So they say fine, or they say it was okay, I could have done better. And you interpret that deflection or lack of self-awareness when what it actually is a child protecting themselves from a conversation their brain has already learned that they don't want to do, that it's not safe. And here's what I want you to understand about the language your child remembers from after a bad game. It does not just affect the next car ride home. It affects the next game, the game after, and the showcase in 3 months, and the tryout in 6 months. Because language after performance does not stay in the car. It gets filled, it gets integrated, it becomes part of the internal monologue your child runs during competition. The voice in their head when they're about to take the risk in a big game or a big moment, it's not a random voice. A composite of every significant post-performance conversation they have ever had with the person whose opinion matters the most to them, which is you. If that voice is analytical, they will be analyzing themselves in real time during games instead of competing freely. And if that voice is comparative, if that voice is negative, they will not play freely in games. And also if the voice carries weight of anticipated evaluation, again, they will be managing that anticipation during games instead of making free plays, instead of making quick decisions and good decisions. So the internal monologue running in your child's head on a game day was written over years of conversation you cannot fully remember. And it is one of the most powerful determinants of whether they perform freely or whether they hesitate. So I work with a player, I'm going to call this Dominic, 16-year-old, technically exceptional, the kind of player who is in a training environment made coach stop what they were doing to watch. His dad was a former competitive player himself, knowledgeable, passionate, deeply invested in Dominic's development. And after every game, good or bad, Dominic's dad debriefed truly, specifically with the genuine belief and the detailed feedback. He was not wrong about the feedback. He was wrong about the timing. And he was wrong about the cumulative effect. By the time Dominic came to me, he had a decision paralysis in games. His coach were describing it as the single biggest obstacle between him playing at that level and going to the next level. And he had also tactical understanding. He had desire. What he did not have was the ability to make a decision in higher pressure game moment without a fraction of a second of internal audit that slowed everything down just enough to miss that moment. So every decision was a little late. He was losing the ball. He was not taking a risk. He was playing safe. When I work with them and his internal monologue, something switched. And now he was making faster decisions, he was taking the risk, and finally was playing freely to the level that he knows he can compete. We already transformed 600 players. Actually, I got a news today that one of our former clients got selected to play for the national team U15. Shout out to Chris. If you want your child to learn how to become the most confident, consistent player, potentially leader and captain of their team, and not only in the soccer environment, but also in their life, I have a link here in the description. We do not work with everybody. I have a mini course here that anybody can purchase, but our mentorship program, we only select few individuals that we know for sure we can help and they're highly motivated. So if that's you, I have a link here in the description and I'll see you in the next video.